1 mile high. John Doe.
JDR News Live.
The human brain is made for thinking, not human experience. It's hardly a tinker toy for experimenting. Not human with drugs.
Why do we talk about marijuana? It's the single biggest drug that is a source of some confusion.
This is really about educating the public about the fact that marijuana is a less harmful drug.
Marijuana, that's to get high.
You can be as high as you want.
The prohibition of marijuana over the last 71 years has not actually prevented you from using marijuana.
You feel weak.
Closer to winning the war on drugs.
I do believe there have been some successes.
We will never arrest our way out of this problem.
Welcome to JDR News Live Daily. I'm your host, John Doe, a.k.a. Tim Martin. How you doing? Hopefully it's a fantastic time for you whenever you're listening to us. If you don't get a chance to listen to us live at youtube.com/JohnDoeRadio/live. Made it a lot easier for you. Just rather than just going to our page on YouTube, you can just type in youtube.com/JohnDoeRadio/live. And boom, there we are. 6 p.m. Mile High time. As I said, if you get a chance, please check us out live. Tell your friends about us. And if you miss what we're doing right here on YouTube Live, maybe you're listening to us in the recorded version. All you got to do to get that done, head over to johndoerad.io. John Doe Radio Online. Everything we've done, recorded during this modern era of the JDR. Lots and lots and lots of hours not up there, but anything that's current is up at johndoerad.io, and you can check it out for yourself. Big thanks to our sponsors that make the JDR possible. Couldn't do it without them. Weedbiz.net. Holler at them if you need to get a grow pod. Go to that website if you need some news from the South. Also, weedbiz.net. Our good friends over at yourgraphics.com. If you need a website to be built for you, WordPress, you need some advertising, pictures done, whatever it is. Woo! That was a mouthful there. Tried to go just one breath saying all the advertisements. Didn't work. I thought I could do it, but it didn't work. Check out Your Graphics on Facebook. Tell them the John Doe Radio Show sent you. Jessica Trim will take care of you. Promise. And big thanks to the JDR News people that bring you JDR News. USA Cannabis Consulting. I screwed that whole up. Brought to you by USACannabisConsulting.com. USACannabisConsulting.com. You need someone who knows how to navigate themselves through the cannabis industry, whether it be trying to get yourself a license, whether it be building out a shop, the actual construction of it. USACannabisConsulting.com can help you out. It's a one-stop shop. Fantastic people, fantastic things that they do, and they'll help take care of you. You got it? And if you'd like to advertise with John Doe Radio, be a part of our family here, give me a holler, johndoeradio@gmail.com, and we'll get you taken care of. I promise. I do. Today, on JDR News Live, we got some fantastic shiz for you. News stories and more. So hopefully we have a good time, all right? As the snow falls. Come on. It is starting to snow here in a beautiful Mile High. I hope it's supposed to be calling for a blizzard this evening into tomorrow. I'm hoping that it does blizzard to welcome all these fantastic new people into our Mile High state. Give them a feeling for what Colorado winter's really like. It's been a mild one for the past few years. We haven't really seen a serious snowstorm. Now, I was born in the mountains and spent like 10 years up in northwest Colorado, up in Steamboat. And let me tell you what, here in Denver, we don't even get a piece, a sliver of what the winter wonderland that Colorado has to offer can give. Living right next to a ski resort that gets some of the most fluffy snow of anywhere in the United States is a fantastic thing. I definitely recommend it to anybody out there that can do it. Lots of snow, though. Today on JDR News Live, Pittsburgh considers decriminalization. New Jersey hearing on legalization, part of what we talked about last week. Colorado hiring a deputy director of marijuana. Denver Post editorial board is pushing to get rid of medical marijuana, it seems like, and how the Cannabranding celebrities are cashing in. That and more. It's Something else that was, well, I hope everybody that did get to Jamaica had a fantastic time. Saw tons of stories, saw tons of pictures from Jamaica. So it does look like everybody had a great time. Smoked some ridiculously bad weed, it looks like. And maybe some not so great hash, which is interesting. I don't think that's too much of a surprise to anybody, though. It shouldn't be too much of a surprise to you. And for the people raising their hands screaming, how the hell did all these Colorado and California products get all the way out to Jamaica? This and that and then, we'll have to talk with High Times again. Maybe get our good buddy Danny Danko on the phone and discuss how they actually do judge all these mamma jammas. A lot of the judging, some of the judging takes place here in the United States in October. Just so if y'all didn't know. You know what I'm saying? So if you're wondering how that happens, there are ways that they make it happen. Anyway, speaking of High Times, we've known people at High Times for years and years and years, whether it be Danny Danko, Bobby Black, people behind the scenes like April, Bobby's wife, other volunteers that have been a part of High Times for years and years and years. And something that I've been hearing from people that are attached to High Times, have been working with High Times for years and years, is that it's been slowly changing into this corporate entity. Something that I know a lot of people that read High Times that aren't just custies, or even the custies, are sad to hear and are sad to see that type of pillar in our community kind of turn towards the corporate end of things. But really, when there's money involved, and specifically as much money that is involved with High Times and them throwing these Cannabis Cup events, I'm hearing making just millions and millions off of these cups. One of the only publications anywhere, and I'm talking about Time magazine, can't think of it, Maxim, other things that are printed on paper and not just found online. Anyway, these things, they've gone to the wayside. Radio, for example, moving onto greener pastures. Former Vivo executive David Cole is taking over as chief of High Times magazine, the Wall Street Journal reported last week. While newspapers and news-gathering organizations have been decimated by the rise of digital media, marijuana media continues to surge. High Times is bringing in Cole to beef up the brand's business chops as it grows and faces increased competition, I should say. It's not competitions. Legal weed generated about $2.6 billion in revenue in 2014 with an economic impact that's at least 5 times as big. High Times started as a joke in 1974, says the San Francisco Gate, bringing a Playboy centerfold vibe to pictures of marijuana. Cole joins High Times as its growing subscribers, online traffic, and advertising increases heavily. High Times circulation and finances are not audited by any outside group. The former Viacom, Comedy Central, MTV, and Xbox executive will revamp the magazine's website. And this is important here for anybody that's interested. You may not care about the business of High Times, but the way that it's all done will expand Cannabis Cups and license the brand, which we all know and have had a little bit of flavor from High Times before about licensing the brand. High Times is slightly, not so much as like a bulldog, as more like a chihuahua, so to speak, has gone after people for naming things the Cannabis Cup. Because it's what High Times has been doing for years and years and years. It's theirs. Their trademark it. Nobody else can use it. And I'm not necessarily saying anything, being a smartass here, and saying anything bad about High Times, because I'm not. It's obvious that something like this was going to happen. I thought originally that the High Times magazine would disappear. I didn't think that it would still exist to this day, that everything would be parlayed into these Cannabis Cups and the branding of Cannabis Awards, which is probably still to come, and maybe still at the beginning stages of all that actually happening. I could see their website becoming a bigger deal, and these cups becoming just an absolute massive, huge deal, and them trying to legitimize them as much as possible with people competing for it. And that could be good and bad. If you could think of the things that are involved in other competitions, and for example, when I sat down and listened to the Halloween episode of The Adam Dunn Show. If you don't listen to The Adam Dunn Show or you haven't ever got a chance to, you'd like to, go to theadamdunnshow.com. A couple fantastic guys who've been in cannabis for years and years and years. Adam Dunn, obviously, with his TH Seeds company, and Mitch Shanasa, multiple businesses, including the Incredible. But we're talking on their Halloween episode to somebody who basically breeds pumpkins for a living and sells pumpkin seeds for a living. These seeds go $800 plus or more just for a pumpkin seed. $50 to $800 is how much he charges for his seeds. Anyway, in these competitions that they have, they actually give people massive amounts of prize money. Now I've heard this happens in, what is it, the Emerald Cup or something like that? Or somebody got a big, I don't know. Either way, what's happening in these outside big competitions like huge cash rewards or trips to the Caribbean or trips on a yacht somewhere, something like this, I can absolutely see something like that starting to happen with some of our cannabis events, including the High Times events, especially seeing how much money or hearing about how much money they actually make on these events. And it's a large amount of money. It's a very, very, very large amount of money, all put together, millions of dollars. Where was I? High Times pioneered a stoner dropout voice that's rapidly being supplanted as cannabis integrates into the mainstream. Free magazine Culture now reaches over 1 million readers nationally and has started a B2B offshoot, Culture B2B. I have no clue what that means. The business news space is so out of date. Feel old sometimes. What's up, Molly? How's you doing, babies? Molly, the studio dog. Try to say hi to all the live people here on the camera. How's you going, buddy? How's you going? Anyway, back to the High Times story. In 2014, Denver Post launched an award-winning cannabis news section called the Cannabis. San Francisco Gate began hosting independent cannabis-focused blogs, including Smell the Truth in 2013. The East Bay Express cannabis blog, Legalization Nation, also began in 2010. Either High Times will have to adjust to the new landscape or they will be dead, said the director of the Magazine Innovation Center at the University of Mississippi. The cannabis industry's first ever conference devoted to media disruptions as well as technological and capital upheaval, the New West Summit. How come I haven't been invited into this? This is ridiculous. How long have we been a part of cannabis media? Since 2007, well before 2010 when a lot of these launched. Been here since the beginning. You've been here since the beginning. The JDR Army. We got to make ourselves a part of this. First ever conference devoted to media disruptions, blah, blah, blah. It occurs in San Francisco on November 20th and 21st. Panels on trends in cannabis, editorials, advertising, and marketing will feature guests like Drake Sutton from lifestyle site I don't even know any of these people. Max Simon from Greenflower Media, Smell the Truth's editor David Downs. Not a single person. Not one known. Also, newly signed to participate. Nobody cares. Bottom line of this story was the fact that High Times has a new executive. Something we've been hearing about for a little while now. Inside sources telling us the High Times magazine is extremely corporatized at this point, too. Go into the office, and it's not exactly the same as it was before. Not like that chilled, laid-back type of situation. I've never been to the High Times offices in New York. Never actually even been to New York. But I have very close friends, like I said, over at High Times. And definitely this has been something that they've been hinting to for a while. Last week, Bobby Black, many of you may know Bobby Black, met him personally either at one of the cups or seen his magazine articles or one of his podcasts. He is leaving High Times magazine. Other people throughout the past year, I know Dave Beanstalk is not there. I'm not exactly sure the reason for him not being there. But our good friend Danny Danko, I'm told, is in for the long haul. So maybe we'll have to sit down, get Danny Danko here on the phone again soon with us. Tell us what it's like over at High Times Magazine now that they're making all these changes and what's in store for the future. Something tells you, though, that Danny's not going to be changing his ways a lot. Danny, great guy. One of the first people to really have big weight and pull in pulling out some of the more funky advertisements in High Times magazine. For instance, the fake weed. Don't tell me that you've never thought about ordering the fake weed from High Times magazine. Even some of you have probably actually done it. Me. I've ordered from that magazine before, some of the fake bud. Checked it out, see exactly how real it is. Never smoked a single bit of it. And in fact, a few of the buds that you get from it look like some of the worst buds that would be shipped in from Mexico. If Mexican weed was actually shipped in bud form and not the brick form that you get it in, some of this fake cannabis weed that they've sold on High Times and other sites actually looks a lot like it. Anyway. Pittsburgh. On November 17, 2015, Public Safety Chair Councilman Danielle Lavelle will introduce an ordinance that will permit City of Pittsburgh police to cite individuals found in possession of a small amount of marijuana under a local ordinance as opposed to charging them with a misdemeanor level criminal offense. The ordinance will create a civil fine of up to $100 for open possession of under 30 grams of marijuana or 8 grams of hash. Officers are authorized to seize the suspected contraband and issue a civil fine similar to a parking ticket to individuals who are not engaged in any other criminal conduct. Seen this happen throughout the United States, specifically here in Colorado, California, before medical marijuana, and over the years, even after medical marijuana being implemented. Decrims like this happening. I gotta say, big shout out to Pittsburgh Normal for helping take care of things here, too. One of the more active normals that there are, local chapters of Normal, I should say. Not a huge fan of National Normal and the work that they do, because really, what work do they do? Besides sometimes supporting bad campaigns and not supporting the other right ones. But Philly Normal, good folks over there getting it taken done, taken care of, getting her done. I crack myself up sometimes. The smashing up of the JDR isms and words. It's like two thoughts at once coming together into one. It saves time, energy. Everybody should do it. Nobody would make sense. Approximately 1,000 individuals are charged with the misdemeanor level marijuana possession offense in Pittsburgh annually. Almost all have criminal charges reduced to a non-traffic summary citation at the first stage of criminal proceedings. Individuals charged with misdemeanor possession must be fingerprinted and risk a loss of employment and housing, especially public housing. Despite similar usages between Caucasians and African Americans, and in fact, a lot of the time, I don't know if it's whether African Americans just don't admit to it on some of these polls that are taken, some of these surveys, but really when it comes down to it, white people admitting to cannabis use a lot more than black people sometimes. Still being arrested 90% more, 80% more in some situations than white people. Where was I at? Here's the numbers. African-American Pittsburghers are charged with minor marijuana possession offenses at a rate of 5 to 1 compared to their white counterparts. Nationally, Pittsburgh shows a growing trend of local municipalities enacting similar laws to protect its citizens. In 2012, the city of Chicago moved to decriminalize small amounts, allowing police to issue tickets instead of making an arrest. In 2014, Washington, D.C. passed a similar ordinance providing for a $25 fine for possession of a small amount. Philly's decriminalization ordinance has resulted in an 80% reduction in custodial arrests for small amounts of marijuana. Woo! We're very excited that Pittsburgh will follow in the footsteps of Philadelphia and others across the country and embrace cannabis reform. The leadership of Public Safety Chair Danielle Lavelle and the Bloomfield-Garfield Corporation Pittsburgh will no longer prioritize cannabis prosecution. Recreational and medicinal consumers in our great city can at least know that their police are not interested in arresting them and potentially ruining their lives over the possession of a simple, non-toxic plant. One frustrating thing in here that I even forgot about, even though I've been heavily affected by cannabis drug war and being charged with a felony, something else that we don't necessarily think about is when you get charged with a drug crime in a lot of states, some states, I think most states, it has to be a felony. I'm sure there's some other rules out there concerning it, but when you attach your driver's license into the punishment, that's another ridiculous situation that happens. For a minute, I kept wondering, like, why can I not get these driver jobs? Why, when I've applied for other jobs where they've checked for car insurance or it involves some sort of transportation type issue, why the hell do I keep getting denied for this shiz? And it hit me late last week, that when I got my felony, when you received a felony, when you received a misdemeanor or something like that, you get your license suspended. I completely forgot about that shit. So, which is another funny situation in itself when my license was suspended. It comes up as a drug suspension, as a license revocation or a license suspension, which is a pretty big smack against you when you're looking at a driving record. And if people are out there, which there are a lot, they don't give a crap about what you were busted for, who you are, they just see things on a paper. It turns out to be a pretty big kick to the gonads. Anyway, here's another backstory with myself and getting that license suspended. I was supposed to have my license suspended for 2 years. 2 years on a drug felony. Not only did I have my license back within 90 days, but that was approved by my probation officer, that would happen. So court order comes through, license is suspended. I get a letter from the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles here in Colorado, saying that your license has been suspended for 90 days. And at that time, you can petition to get the license back. I was like, what? No freaking way. So me being me, I kept it quiet until the 90 days were up, applied for my license, got my license given to me by the state of Colorado, then went to my probation officer, sat down with this letter and was like, dude, I've totally forgot about this letter, but here's something that is a timely situation right now. It says I should be able to get my license. Can I apply to get my license? And if they give it to me, can I roll with it? The dude was like, I don't give a damn. Do what you want. I was like, yes, this is fantastic. I've already applied for it and I've already got it. Of course, I didn't tell him that. I just rolled with the punches. God. Just more examples of the ridiculousness that is the drug war. One hand not doing what the other farking hand thinks it's doing. All right, back to news. You're like, I don't give a shit less about your background, John Doe. Give me a break. By the way, if you got any questions, you got any comments, leave them in the chat room for me. YouTube.com/JohnDoeRadio/live. If I get a chance to, I will answer them. As long as you're not trolling. Whether New Jersey should legalize the recreational use of marijuana is at the center of a legislative hearing. The Judiciary Committee is hearing from clergy, health professionals, and law enforcement officials and other experts in Trenton, New Jersey. State Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Nicholas Scutari said Monday it's time to bring the drug out of the underground economy, noting that legalizing, taxing, and regulating marijuana could create $1 billion industry. He said legalizing the drug would be a long process. Last week, he introduced a bill that would make using marijuana legal for 21 and older adults, as long as they don't use it in public. I think that's a fantastic idea. I think we need to change the entire ballgame and legalize it, regulate it, tax it, so we can ensure the safety of our citizens, as well as garner the tax benefits, Scutari said last Tuesday. Marijuana has been legalized, blah, 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 Colorado, Oregon, the usual things we read in these news stories. New Jersey's medical marijuana law is among the most restrictive, with patients and doctors required to register with the state and each pay a $200 fee. 5 dispensaries, a 6th is pending. Oh no, but we can't have 10 people having a monopoly in Ohio. The hearing comes as lawmakers face a lame duck session of the legislature, and as Governor Chris Christie spends his time outside New Jersey campaigning for the Republican nominee for president. Some of the big question marks center around tax dollars, business growth, security, and whether banks would participate. I can tell you right now, banks will not participate until the feds get that situation taken care of, and that's kind of a lame duck issue in itself. Even though Obama and Even though Obama and his cabinet have issued directives for banks to start accepting, or a system to be worked out where banks start accepting accounts from cannabis companies, that's just not happening. We're no closer now than we were when he first made that announcement months and months and months ago, which is absolutely ridiculous. And it goes to show that there are quite a bit of rogue parts of our system that we need to get under control. You know, like we talk about all the time, people that work for the DEA, the National Institute for Drug Control, DARE, DEA, any of them, their job specifically is to get you to not use drugs and to speak badly of drugs. And you know, when it comes down to meth, when it comes down to heroin, painkillers, pills, stuff like that, then yes, maybe they should be in a situation to where they should be campaigning against it. But when it comes to us trying to do reform, fixing the problem that we've gotten ourselves into, there are those hurdles along the line, those agencies that we have to now jump over in some sort of way, circumvent, or it's going to take from the top them being directed to change the way that they do business, because they've done business the same way for so long. Their job is to be anti-cannabis. Their job is to be anti-drug. And that's the only thing they know. When something else non-binding comes down, why are they going to change the way that they do their job that they've done for years and years and years? The only thing that they need to do, the only people that we've put in those jobs are people that are anti-reform. What do we expect? Giving them a non-binding directive? It says, hey, you should do this. Even though I'm your boss, you don't necessarily have to do this, basically, is what I'm saying, but you should do this. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's part of the whole problem that we're dealing with. Not necessarily here in the Colorado region. We've talked about the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Drug Task Force before, which works closely with the DEA in this region. Say you go somewhere like Alabama, Mississippi, Florida. In that region, you got a whole nother set of people that are head of organizations there, whether it be the DEA or whatever it is. Even though we have made strides here in Colorado, and we may be reaping the benefits of not only legalization and the taxes that go along with it, but also the freedom that goes along with it, not having DEA breathe down your neck, not having tickets be given to you left and right, maybe breaking that mold of every 42 seconds somebody being arrested for cannabis. Other parts of this country are being neglected because of that chain of command not working, not being handed down as a directive. Instead of these suggestions, somebody needs to lay the smacketh down. And to me, that's got to be Obama. And this next year, if he really wants to make drug reform, well, not drug reform, specifically drug sentencing in our justice system, wants to realign it again, then this is something that he needs to focus on heavily, is making this a cross-country thing, a federal action, and not just a local type situation. Back to New Jersey here. Last paragraph. Senate President Steve Sweeney said we are going to have a model to measure from to see what's good, what's bad. Is it the right decision? Is it not the right decision? But we'll have enough information to make an informed decision. All these places trying to reinvent the wheel when it comes down to legalization or medical marijuana. It just doesn't make any sense. You have plenty of states to choose from, ones to pick from that have actually succeeded in putting in a system, specifically here, Colorado, Oregon, California even. I don't understand why. Oh, we got to get rid of this bed. Shout out to all the rap songs making me look in the rearview mirror with their cop sound effects, including that song. Oh, crap. What is this one? Let me fast forward this. All right, we can do that one. Anyway, moving on here. It's enough of that. So, actually, didn't hear back. I've applied for multiple jobs, but specifically talking about a job application that I've put in for the Marijuana Enforcement Division's communications dude. Basically, you'd be the dude that gives PowerPoint presentations, explains to people how our cannabis system is working. You'd be sent all over the world say Iowa wants to legalize. People invited the Marijuana Enforcement Division to send somebody out to Iowa to explain how things are happening out here. Just like I talked about with us showing other people how the wheel works and not how to form your own damn wheel. It's round, it rolls, you stick it on an axle, and you can ride it. It's perfect. We got it taken care of here in Colorado. Anyway, they're hiring someone, which they've already hired, I think, or at least gone through the first section of interviews during this hiring process. The frustrating thing is I didn't even hear back from the Marijuana Enforcement Division. Then it takes me digging into their situation today after I had seen another job posting that we'll talk about here in a second, that you basically have to be a cop to work for the Marijuana Enforcement Division. You have to be police officer certified. So you literally have to go through police academy to work in 99.9% of positions here in Colorado for the state, for the Marijuana Enforcement Division. Unless you're the person that's taking money and applications from people sitting at the front desk at the Marijuana Enforcement Division, yeah, you got to have a badge, which is ridiculous. First of all, they don't put that in any of their situations to where you apply for a job for the Marijuana Enforcement Division. It's not in there. And two, I don't know if this job specifically is with the Marijuana Enforcement Division. This might be specifically with the governor's office. Do I care? Only because the only reason why I care is because this is just another situation to where they're going to try and bastardize what we're doing here in Colorado and flip it. Instead of having somebody that's, completely gung-ho cannabis, loves every last bit of things that we're doing here in Colorado, it's probably going to be somebody that, not going to speak badly about what we're doing here in Colorado, but still have a heavy hand on enforcement, which is a big pain in the ass. And especially when it deals with the cops, we know how the cops run things. And then with the Marijuana Enforcement Division having the same leadership that they've had for so long, letting things slide, misusing funds, et cetera, we could go on and on. Anyway, state of Colorado looking to fill a major marijuana policy position as the Deputy Director of Marijuana Coordination. It's open until the 18th, which is what? That's like day after tomorrow? Yep, day after tomorrow. To aid the director, however needed, in ensuring the efficient and effective implementation of Colorado's recreational medical marijuana laws and the state's education, preventative, and treatment efforts. So basically, you're going to be replacing the new deputy director, who was Skylar McKinley. This job could lead you to a position, a serious position with the governor or governor's office or some high-profile political position. Not kidding you. Because the Skylar McKinley dude that just left this position is now going on to work on upper executive job with Governor Hickenlooper. Oh, man, the changes we're going to see over the next 5-10 years. Some of it just makes me want to cover my eyes and turn around and run and hide in the corner, though. Speaking of that, let's get to this other story. Big marijuana. Looks like Marley, Snoop, Willie, and Rihanna. This one written by Russ Belville. Big thanks to Russ Belville from MarijuanaPolitics.com. Ever since the popularization of marijuana in America, there has always been a concern from cannabis consumers that big tobacco would swoop in and create the Marlboro of marijuana, full of additives. For the opponents of legalization of marijuana, big marijuana is the corporate boogeyman that adulterates cannabis to make it more addictive and markets it to kids. So far, however, big marijuana looks like 3 pot-smoking musicians cashing in on their celebrity and 1 private equity firm cashing in on another pot-smoking musician. By the way, Rihanna also launched a cannabis line. Last week we had mentioned to you that Snoop Dogg launched his cannabis line here at Live Well in Denver called Leafs by Snoop. Well, I thought the name Leafs was dumb enough. Rihanna launched her line. Rihanna's line is called Ma Rihanna. So creative. It's so fantastically awesome. Ma Rihanna. She's her brand gonna offer edibles, concentrates, and island-themed flowers like Caribbean Kush, Haitian Haze, and Jamaican High Grade. Ma Rihanna by Rihanna is truly the first mainstream cannabis brand in the world and proud to be a pioneer, Rihanna said. Ma Rihanna is blazing the trail for the industry. Really, I think that's the exact same press release that Snoop Dogg gave out last week when he released his Leafs by Snoop. In 2014, Privateer Holdings announced its exclusive partnership with the estate of the late reggae icon Bob Marley to create a mainstream cannabis brand called Marley Natural. Vice News described the American private equity firm led by a team of white, Yale-educated go-getting fitness freaks who would be cashing in on the legacy of Bob Marley and Jamaican ganja. But since ganja cultivation is still illegal in Jamaica, all Marley Natural cannabis will be grown in the United States. Poor Rasta ganja farmers who have always struggled economically will benefit in no way from the brand. Then country music legend Willie Nelson got into the act earlier this year, announcing the creation of his Willie's Reserve brand of marijuana. Someone from Willie's team says, let's just call it the anti-Walmart model. Personally, internally, that's what we call it. Willie's Reserve would like to be the whole food store that sells its own brands, as well as others that meet Willie's moral guidelines. A certain standard by which growers have to account by carbon and such, said Bowman, dude that's part of this Willie's campaign, or Willie's Reserve, in a way that empowers small growers who are doing the right thing. Then, last week, as we mentioned, rapper Snoop Dogg announced his premium Leafs by Snoop brand. Exactly, and then the press release for Snoop's, making Snoop the first celebrity to front a line of personally branded marijuana products. We're clearly not aware of Marley Natural and Willie's Reserve. Leafs by Snoop being grown and sold by Live Well here in Colorado. Also the same people that brought you Eagle 20 OG, SSV, Eagle 20 OG, and Triangle Eagle 20 OG. So I don't know how excited I would be to launch my product. This is what just sucks about all this. It goes to show that none of these people really care about anything other than marketing and branding cannabis, putting their name on it and making money off of it. I think in my right mind, who would want to launch a line from products that were just recalled in order to be destroyed in the biggest recall yet that we've had here in Colorado because of contaminants. The problem is, and we've explained this before, we'll explain it many, many, many times again, is that 90% of the people out there smoking are not you and me that care about the quality, care about the glass that we smoke out of. 90% of the people out there smoking are custies. They don't care if it's swag or if they're smoking out of a plastic bong or whether it be a metal pipe. They honestly don't care. If you put a name on it, Snoop's name, or Mariana. God, that's so stupid. Mariana. Or even Willie's Reserve. You put any one of these names on it, hand it to them, tell them, hey, check this fantastic shiz out. The person being handed the shit to isn't going to care, and in fact is probably going to be pretty damn stoked about getting some of this fantastic new product from Willie or Snoop or Mariana. I just enjoy saying Mariana. Mariana. It's funny. By the way, I've had this sitting here in front of me. 420 jars. It looks like something that would come in your girlfriend's bag. And when you open it up, it would be like some lip balm or something shiz like that. It's got like 1/8 of an inch depth to it. So basically a cross between like a makeup container and a lip balm container. Kind of one of those small things for people not watching us live right now. And like I said, a very, very shallow container in with it. I've been looking at it ever since I got back from Champs a week and a half ago, figuring out what the hell this would be used for, what you could put in here that would fit in here, and where this would serve any type of purpose other than for me to sit here and open and close during the show. keep my hands busy. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Goes hand in hand with putting together some of these products from Mariana or Snoop or Willie's. It's like it doesn't exactly matter where they fit in as long as it does fit in some sort of way. Even if it doesn't fit in. You create a product, a niche type situation, brand your own Q-tips, put them out there. Somebody's going to buy them. All right, so you may get headier customers branding some Q-tips than you would branding a swag line of doobies, but I'm just saying, okay? It all plays in the same thing, hand in hand. The JDR line of Q-tip holders. Let me go get some... Let me go get my red Solo Cup collection. Sell them to you for about $2,000 a piece. All right, I'm sorry for anybody out there that uses Q-tips to clean their shiz. There's nothing wrong with that. Keep doing what you're doing. Getting back to news here. DenverPost.com editorial board, time after time after time, anytime they write something about cannabis, it's usually anti-cannabis, usually talks about how they don't approve of something, and every single time they absolutely strike out. Doesn't end up happening how they would like things to happen, and in fact makes them just like absolute idiots. I'm not kidding on this. Every single farking time they're anti-cannabis, and it does. It just makes them look like idiots here in the state of Colorado. Not to mention, as I joked earlier on Facebook, how their track record just looks worse than any Rockies baseball record in September ever, which is pretty bad. If you don't follow the Rockies and all watch baseball, which I'm sure is every single one of you. Anyway, Denver proposal to alter licensing of marijuana businesses has some good and bad features, says the editorial board. The city council should reshape its before passing the plan into law, though. Denver Mayor Michael Hancock's administration announced it wants to extend a 2-year moratorium set to expire January 1st that allows only existing medical marijuana businesses to open recreational dispensaries, grow houses, or edible manufacturers. The plan would also freeze medical marijuana outlets. The last part of this proposal certainly makes sense, says the editorial board. The city, I almost said the shitty, city shitty, should indeed suspend new licensing for medical marijuana outlets. Of the city's 212 marijuana storefronts, only 13 are retail only. A total of 128 are combined medical and retail shops, and 71 are medical only. It had long been thought that retail pot would reduce the need for medical marijuana. That clearly hasn't happened. The latest figures show 113,862 Coloradans have medical marijuana red cards, roughly 2,000 more than when retail marijuana was legalized in January of 2014. You have to understand where the editorial board is kind of coming from as they're talking shit in here. If it doesn't seem like they're being too upfront with what they're trying to say, it's because they're not. The editorial board, at least whoever got together to write this, is basically going on and saying that medical marijuana is a farce. And I thought that once we got recreational cannabis, that this whole you use medical marijuana shiatsu was going to go away. That was just going to be flushed down the drain, and we're not going to talk about this anymore, and we're going to just convert over to recreational marijuana. And I'll also admit it's not something that I wanted, but it's something that I've specifically talked about for years and years and years on how I even thought at this point it would probably be gone. But once again, another underestimation of our grassroots activity here in Colorado and the undermining people that support cannabis and support medical marijuana here in Colorado is not a smart thing to do. It's not a smart thing to think that they can't go out and get shit done, or that it's just going to be a pushover type situation to get medical marijuana removed or pushed into one. Considering the rules, when talking about the rules, putting that all together as one, which has already happened, basically. If you talk to the Marijuana Enforcement Division, if you go look at the rules on the Marijuana Enforcement Division site, they're all basically the same. And if they haven't quite published what they're supposed to yet, because all this stuff is supposed to be online, all this stuff is supposed to be available for you to learn and to get and to take care of and to take a lead off of. But it hasn't been that way for months and months now. The rules have still been separated, and then you go into the office, they tell you the rules tell you one thing on the website, and then you go into the office, they tell you another. And basically, all the rules are the same. The recreational rules are now rules for everything, including the red line edits. And if all that was confusing, for me just explaining to you, think about the people that are trying to get some shit done with these rules. They're trying to get licensed, they're trying to get a badge, or be a part of this industry. It's frustrating. It's not nearly as bad as like it is in other states, and I probably make a bigger deal out of it than it really is. But when it comes down to treating everybody the same, having a flat line base to go off of and rules to launch yourself off of, that's where it comes down to being an important situation. Because let's just be honest. If you don't know anything about the Marijuana Enforcement Division, one thing you should know is they are not consistent. And they're not necessarily fair. Plenty of situations we can name. In fact, one of the most egregious situations is that when a dispensary or a license holder is charged with a crime or charged with something to where they're going to have their license revoked, the Marijuana Enforcement Division allows that person to transfer a license to another entity. So instead of just confiscating that license and taking it away, they allow the people selling it to gain money off of that, and then also the Marijuana Enforcement Division is gaining money off of that because of the fees that go along with it. That's a racket, man. If you want to be gangster, you want to be part of the real mafia, real organized crime. First of all, you need a police officer's badge. Second of all, if you don't want to get a police officer's badge, you got to reach high forms of government office or be a part of some regulatory agency. Perfect plan. Getting back to this news story, Denver Post article about removing MedMJ, basically. They say it's no wonder patients don't have to pay the special taxes imposed on retail pot and can purchase more of a product at one time. Denver has plenty of medical pot facilities to serve legitimate patients, but it's time to stop encouraging the growth of an industry that boomed before retail pot was born, especially given the scant medical evidence to support marijuana's use for all but a handful of maladies. That itself is a bunch of hoo-ha. It goes to show really how ignorant the people writing this story are. The process for obtaining red cards has been tightened, but clearly is still subject to gamesmanship, aided by a poorly written constitutional amendment. Same crap that they've echoed since the beginning of cannabis times here in Colorado. The city, however, should allow new owners to set up retail shops and let competition and the market play out in that arena. Denver's rationale for extending the moratorium on retail is that the market could outgrow demand. Officials fear excess marijuana could drift into the black market or fall into the hands of young people, but that's an argument that can be marshaled indefinitely to impose an artificial quota and protect an oligopoly. There's that word again. Although they didn't say oligopoly, monopoly. Which from now on, if we're talking about oligopoly when it comes to cannabis, JDR says it's got to be an oligopoly monopoly. Oh, boy. You can tell that it's starting to snow outside because I can feel it. I can feel it in the air, so it's just making me be a little bit more goofy. It's leading me down the line of shoot from the hip type jokes, which aren't funny. Funny to me, maybe not funny to you. Crack me up when I go back and listen to the show. So is that all that really matters? I think so. Just kidding. It's going to be up to the regulators. First of all, there's little data to back up these fears that marijuana would get out of control, and the data on the black market in particular are not likely to be any more definitive 2 years from now. It's up to regulators, especially at the state level, to refine the system they promise to track marijuana grown commercially from seed to sale to ensure it isn't diverted illicitly. It will be more difficult to open new retail shops after January 1st anyway, since they will go through what's known as the needs and desires licensing procedures. So basically, needs and desires licensing procedures is you go in front of like a board, a local board, whether it be the city council or a board that's delegated by whomever, and you sit down and you explain, this is what I want to do. They see if the community thinks that it's a good deal, if the community needs it, and then let you roll for it. Roll with it. Really, basically. Similar to alcohol licensing, the law says new businesses must gather signatures from neighbors to show the community welcomes new establishment in their midst. The step alone would put a brake on excessive growth of pot shops. So I agree partly with what the Denver Post is saying here, but they don't make it clear. They come in with their sideways-ass bullshit, and then towards the end actually start to make sense. It does make perfect sense that the industry and demand would drive how many of these shops are to be open. And if you don't want any more of these shops to be open, it's really all it leads to is you just being a scaredy cat. You being part of the scared soccer moms crew. Scared mocker moms. And the scared soccer dads, well, scared NASCAR dads, we'll call them that. It's the scared soccer moms and the scared NASCAR dads that don't want a bunch of these shops to keep opening, but the market says that it's fine and the market will support them. And going back to what I've said before, weed doesn't sell itself, or you don't sell weed, bitch. Weed sells itself. That's the only concern that I would have about a never-ending stream of shops that keep opening, is because that could probably happen. You could probably have 10 shops right next to each other on the same block. For instance, Broadsterdam. It's about that way. You walk one block, there's 2 shops. You walk another, there's another 3 shops. And all these shops have been open for years and years and years. So I can see that being a true fear in these people's hearts, is that, dude, too many people want to buy weed. These shops are never, ever, ever going to go out of business. The market needs them. We're scared. We got to do something to stop it. That's really the situation that I see. They should just be honest about it. Be honest about their fears. I would respect them a little bit more being honest with their fears than just going on and saying that we don't want the market to get oversaturated and we don't want there to be businesses closing down left and right after a bubble burst, which is basically what they're saying. It is not your job to tell me what I can and can't sell, is what it should be, within regulation. Oh, man. I say a statement like that, and it just kicks me in my ass. Because obviously there's going to be regulation when it comes down to cannabis. Even though there shouldn't be, there's going to be. All right, and then obviously the part about where the editorial board's supporting, they're supporting it for all the wrong reasons, basically. Wanting medical marijuana to go to the wayside and thinking that them putting in a moratorium that would allow a situation to move that forward quicker is the smart thing to do, is not the smart thing to do. Anyway, we've already read that. Moving on to the next one. What else do we have here? New Jersey. We've already read that. We've already read that. We've already read that. I got one more story for you. And then we're done for the afternoon. You guys can go enjoy the snow if you're here in Colorado. If you're not here in Colorado, hopefully you have something to go enjoy, like maybe some video games or hot chocolate, the warm touch of a woman. Something that I really not familiar with anymore. Oh, and like doing JDR daily does not make it clearly obvious why that situation is not happening. There's been a number of hot-button issues that have dominated the early Republican debate and even Democratic Party's lone debate, but none have arguably garnered more attention than marijuana. States that could legalize recreational marijuana in 2016. Number 1, California. It's the number 1 state everybody thinks should pass it. It's the number 1 state that should have passed it to this date. And it seems like a logical choice considering the passage of compassionate use law of 96 allowed medical marijuana patients to be prescribed by physicians for marijuana by physicians and all that good stuff. As a marijuana revolutionary and a noted progressive state, residents appear to be well in support of legalizing the drug across the board. According to cheatsheet.com, Almost 2/3 of respondents are in favor of legalization. Problem is, you can't get anybody to agree on anything in California. Y'all like your weed, but you like it too much. Don't want to have the government get its hands on it. You don't want your neighbor to get their hands on it. Somebody's got to get their hands on it, or nobody is going to have their hands on it one day. Nevada, this is my number one. I think this is above what this article at fool.com is saying. I think Nevada is seen the lights. They understand what cannabis can do for the economy. And can you imagine going to Las Vegas, having gambling, strippers, alcohol, and weed all in one spot? This shit's a no-brainer if you're trying to make money. I cannot imagine how much money anybody holding a license in Nevada is going to make when it comes down to legalization. It's going to be huge. Fucking huge. We thought we'd make a lot of money here in Colorado, or even in California, some spots, some areas. No. These people that open in Vegas or surrounding areas, they're just going to shit you on any idea anyone else has of setting records for money income. And this article says, number 3, New York. What makes New York the perfect point of entry for recreational marijuana industry is that it isn't a referendum state. In layman's terms, that means legislators don't have to put a marijuana initiative in front of New York residents in order to pass it. If a bill gets through the legislature and is signed into law, it goes into effect immediately. Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act has already been introduced in the New York legislature, but it's yet to gain the necessary traction to be turned into law. As Rolling Stone noted in June, current Governor Andrew Cuomo has been the primary obstacle due to his general silence on the issue and varying stance on the drug over the years. However, with medical marijuana now signed into law and Cuomo wanting to keep his constituents happy, also us reading new news articles of the 2 emergency bills that were signed into law last week giving access to patients earlier than it was supposed to go into play, also adds a little bit something on the positive side of New Yorkers' chance to get legalized weed. In addition to aforementioned states, following states also have active coalitions looking to raise capital and obtain signatures. In 2016, Maine, Massachusetts, Arkansas, Arizona, Vermont, Missouri, Wyoming, Montana, Michigan, Connecticut, Maryland, Minnesota, Rhode Island, and Delaware. Pretty good-sized list. By the way, don't expect anything to pass in Wyoming. Don't expect anything to pass in Arkansas quite yet. And I probably would have added Arizona to this list before I would have added New York. So in my opinion, really it comes down to Nevada, California, and possibly Arizona as my top 3 that could pass in 2016. Arizona kind of one of those wild cards. They have such a conservative constituency in some areas, and people have enjoyed what that stupid sheriff out there does, Sheriff Arpaio. But you can see more and more lately a kickback, a pushback to what the sheriff's done for years and years and years, and more talk coming out of Arizona because of immigration issues, etc. The drug war down there leaves it for a great situation to legalize. We'll see what happens. It's going to be an exciting year coming up in 2016. We could move on forward. I think my dog farted. Time for us to go. It's the John Doe Radio Show. Have yourselves a fantastic day. Like I said, if you don't get a chance to listen to us live here on JDR, holler at us on johndoeradio.com, on JDR's YouTube live, I should say. Then if you missed us on here, head over to johndoerad.io. And we'll take care of you there. Big thanks to our sponsors on the John Doe Radio Show, weedbiz.net. Good friends over at weedbiz.net. Yourgraphics.com, Yourgraphics, URGRAFIX. And USA Cannabis Consulting. You can go to usacannabis.consulting also. They got some brand new sites. John Doe Radio gave them a good idea. johndoerad.io. So USA Cannabis Consulting went out and picked up usacannabis.consulting. It's pretty cool how you can do all these awesome play on words. Anyway, I'm going to enjoy the snow. I'll get this uploaded. You guys have yourselves a fantastic day. Until we meet again tomorrow, more news, more analysis, more JDR. If you got questions, comments, holler at me, johndoeradio@gmail.com, or on my Facebook page, or on Bike's Facebook page, or on the John Doe Radio Show's Facebook page. I'm Tim Martin. Say it.
The John Doe Radio Show is produced by Charlie Stash Entertainment. The John Doe Radio Show programming is not limited to, but includes information and humor on counterculture subjects that is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. We specifically include responsible marijuana reform. Besides, listening to anyone but your mother is just plain stupid. We accept no responsibility for your actions or misrepresentations, and we do not fully endorse the use of illegal drugs. You are ultimately responsible for yourself.
Live.